Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham, where Team Needham discusses everything healthcare. I'm your host, Shawn Needham, along with my wonderful wife, Janet, and we are streaming live from the Team Needham podcast studio at Team Needham Abode. And we are super excited to have Nancy Griffin on our show today. As we wait for her to come in, we're going to be discussing women's worth and wellness. She has here's her website. And a little information about her. Um, and Janet, how do you want to start this when we talk about women's worth and wellness?
So I guess from my perspective as being in the wellness space for quite some time, I think women short themselves a little bit with the thoughts that we sacrifice our time for our families, for our activities that we choose, whether we volunteer or whether we're working, and we don't take our wellness space as being a priority. Um, we're worth, in my opinion, the time to work out, the time to de stress, the time to take care of our bodies and our minds before we take care of other people. And I think that that's lost in our culture a little bit, that maybe we learn that early in life that, we put everybody else in front of us, where in reality, we should take care of ourselves first and then be able to help other people. And I think that that is something that's kind of holding some women back from uh, obtaining their goals of whether it be health or whether it be, maybe something that they're passionate about in their life, um, which is unfortunate.
And I will say, being a husband of a wonderful mother who sacrificed so much for her family, and I think one job as a husband is to make sure that our wives are prioritizing their own health and their own self. Um, I know there was many times, even currently, even though we're empty nesters and our kids are out of the house, I still have to remind my wife how she needs to take care of herself. Um, Sometimes many times women are not just the caretakers in the family, but they also kind of are in charge of health and in charge of food and a lot of the finances too. And sometimes they will not spend money on themselves, whether it to be to get a massage or whether it to be to get their nails done, things like that. I think as husbands, we need to remind women that in order for them to be able to take care of their families, they need to take care of themselves first. And that means taking care of some of those things first. So I think as husbands, that's what we need to do.
Well, I think that's a great point, that especially with couples in a marriage, that we talk about our priorities together, because that keeps us accountable. But also, if you have a conversation, that breakdown doesn't happen, right? Breakdowns happen in relationships when we're not talking to one another. And so I think for women, if we have those conversations with our spouse and our significant other, that does make it a priority. And also remember, if you do have kids, our kids are out of the house, but they're still, popping in and out, raiding my freezer,
Bridge.
which I don't mind. Um, but those eyes are on us too. We set examples, and the last thing in the world I wanted for my children is to have bad habits that would harm them later in life. And so setting the example is something um, important. And if we take care of ourselves, and I'm not talking in ways that we don't help our family, if we are totally selfish and not, we're not going to that extreme. But where we are putting this is that, those eyes, those children are being given an example of how we as mothers, or we as caretakers, are taking care of our own bodies, or our minds, or our, stress levels. So I think we need to make that a priority for women. Um, Many times, I think by the time women are perimenopause or menopause or midlife, they're transitioning into taking care of teenagers to taking care of their parents as well. So, the role seems to keep going, which is great. It's a beautiful thing to be involved in those things. It's just that priority of self-care needs to be focused on sometimes in our society, and not feeling guilty. I think that's the other part of it, is that we shouldn't feel guilty when we say no because we are tired, and we don't have the energy to participate in something that isn't maybe our top goal at the time. Sometimes we need to look at that word as being freeing, and being empowering to us, to transition into doing something that is healthy for our body and mind.
Yeah, and I like what Janet says about communication, and she didn't really actually say that. She did, but didn't use that word. But it is important to communicate as spouses, what your goals and ambitions are, um, in order to make sure that you have a very successful marriage. Nancy, welcome to our show.
Thank you, and delighted to be here.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your history.
Okay, well, it's a big one, and how far do you want to go back?
You just go.
Okay, fine. Okay, well, I'll start with Women, Worth, and Wellness. I was recruited into the wealth management business, which was wonderful. And once I got there, I was sorry I hadn't been there 20 years earlier. So the
So
routine
Nancy, if
is,
you Nancy, could you tilt your camera down so we can see more of your face?
it's such a beautiful face.
Perfect.
Yep,
Thank you.
gotcha.
That's awesome.
Anyway, so I'm recruited into the wealth management business. And of course, you've got to be licensed. You've got to have all your credentials before you get going. And then the company, of course, gives you all kinds of training. But the one thing they don't do is give you clients. So they say, okay, you're ready to go find some clients. And the clients that you ideally want to work with are ones where you feel you can add value and enhance their well being. So this was 1992, and that was just when women were really getting underway with earning a whole lot more and really paying attention to their whole financial future. So I started with a focus on women, not exclusively, but primarily. And as I got underway, meeting with these clients and talking to them, I realized that women, and not a big surprise, it was just a reinforcement, that women have a disproportionate amount of responsibility in their families for their family's health and well-being. It's like every mom is expected to be a nurse practitioner. Well, what do they know? So I started to partner with health-related organizations that focused on women's health. For example, the leading cause of death for women is heart disease. People think it's cancer. Partnered with the Heart and Stroke Foundation, I would invite my clients to come and bring their friends so they would learn a lot of new things, because the symptoms of heart disease for women versus men are quite different. And now if these women have questions, they've got a go-to resource. So a lot of good things happen by partnering with these not-for-profit health-related organizations focusing on women. In Toronto, we have a wonderful hospital called Women's College Hospital, over 100 years old, partnered with them, all sorts of good things going on. But whenever I did any event, I would also charge my guests a nominal fee, like $25 or $50, and that would be a deduction from their income tax return. So they start to get the feeling for the benefits of charitable giving from a net worth standpoint. So Women, Worth, and Wellness is 31 years old this year. Fast forward, women now are earning way more than they were 31 years ago. But more importantly, they're now inheriting wealth with a whole lot more to come. So the whole aspect of women stewarding their wealth is a bigger topic than ever before. Women have always wanted power, And now they've got power beyond their wildest imagination. And we can see this evidenced with people like Melinda French Gates and Mackenzie Scott, the monies that they are stewarding and how they're really, really becoming role models to give back and really make a difference in society.
So tell us how important health is when it comes to wealth.
Huge, huge. And I tell people that if you're not working with a wealth advisor who has anticipated health-related challenges in your financial future, then you need to find someone else. Because first of all, nobody gets out of here alive. And of course, we never know when that endpoint will be. So making sure that you're well protected in the event of it coming sooner rather than later is very important. What about critical illness? What about disability? So all sorts of what ifs that a proper wealth advisor will have anticipated and build that into your total wealth plan.
And what about prevention of heart disease? If heart disease is the number one killer of women, which it is, most of it is preventable. So what do you share to make sure that women know that?
Two things. One is, number one, own your health. Own your own health. Your health doesn't belong to your doctor. Your health belongs to you. So educate yourself in terms of your own DNA. What is your family history? What are some things that you need to be looking out for? Once you've got a better handle on that, then educate yourself. I'll share a personal example. I went to my doctor a year ago for a regular checkup. Great guy, super guy. And he said, cholesterol is kind of borderline. Like, in other words, you might start thinking about some meds. Now, I just had a really good friend who did have a heart incident, always looked after her health, was very disappointed that her doctor had not anticipated that and had that conversation sooner rather than later. She said, Nancy, you've got a terrific doctor. So borderline. I thought, I don't want to go on any drugs or medication unless I absolutely have to. Because the thing is, once you get on them, it's very difficult to get off them. So I said, unless this is really serious, I'd like to just leave it for next year. So next year rolls around. I get a message, go get some blood work. So I just met with him yesterday. And he said, I have no idea what you're doing, but your numbers are even way better than they've ever been, not just versus last year. He said, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I have no idea what I'm doing differently. But my point is, you need to have trusted advisors pertaining to your health and pertaining to your wealth. And I was really impressed with him that he wasn't continuing to push drugs on me. He basically said, you're free to go, keep on doing exactly what you're doing. So educate yourself and own your own health.
Absolutely. That's what we say. And, Janet and I are two pharmacists that don't believe in drugs to treat long-term disease. So kudos to you, Nancy.
I'm amazed. I couldn't believe it.
Janet, what questions do you have for Nancy?
So Nancy, being in this, I think we started, or at least I started my career right about the time that you're talking about, the 90s. You do see a lot of women out there that are doing very well. But there's also a group of us out there that sell themselves a little short. So how do you go about encouraging them to step out of that and give themselves, because I feel like part of it that's holding some women back is just not giving themselves the right to do this, like giving themselves the go ahead. So how do you encourage women to step out of their rut or their safety zone to accomplish these goals?
Okay, well, the Women Worth and Wellness brand is net worth and self-worth, but the worth is always you are worthy. You are worthy. And when we're on the airplane and they tell you to put the oxygen on you first. Okay, so the oxygen is on. We're alive and well. Lots of people in this world do not have that privilege. But now that you're alive and well, what are you going to do? How are you going to find a way to bring your best forward? And often you need to be selfish. Again, going back, you have to own your health. You have to own your wealth. And if you haven't been as successful financially as you would hope to be, it's never too late to get started and look for that trusted advisor. And if you don't have a trusted advisor, the best place to start is at the bank. Everybody has a bank account, and every bank has a whole suite of advisors, ranging on, how little, how much. wealth that you do have. And you just step up and step out and start asking questions and make sure that the person obviously is a professional, but then make sure through your questioning that you have a level of comfort that that person is going to have your back. I say no one of us wants to do our own dental work. So don't try to figure this out for yourself. That's why there are professionals there to be at your service to help you be your best and to bring your best forward.
So that's great tips, Nancy. Thank you. So what are your thoughts about, you said it's never too late to start.
Right.
Explain the difference between starting early when it comes to building wealth and starting later in life.
Well, it can make a huge difference, both as it pertains to your health and your wealth. You know, during your 20s, if you haven't focused on your health and you've done a lot of things that abused your health, then you're probably going to pay for it later on. So, you know, and again, we've all participated. I was a big smoker until I was 33 years old. And the thing that was a showstopper for me, I was at Procter & Gamble in Canada, and every year we had an annual health review. And the doctor said, you know, they say, well, how was your family situation? Of course, we had one daughter at the time, 6 years old, just started in French immersion. And this doctor, kudos to him, he said, Nancy, you know, children of parents who smoke tend not to do as well in school because they miss a lot of school with respiratory diseases. Well, of course, she just gone into French immersion. I'm hoping for the best for her future. And 6 months later, I quit smoking. So somebody has to bring those situations to your attention so that those early years are not abusing your health. Your greatest asset is you, which is your health, your ability to move around and do all the things you want to do. And normally we don't pay attention to our health until something stops us, whatever that may be. Same thing with your wealth. And again, we've all got a million ways that we can spend the money that we do have. But again, setting aside a little bit, working with somebody who can help you build that wealth portfolio, again, is extremely important. The individual makes the final decision. But what they need is someone like that doctor to bring some possibilities to you so you can make a choice. You know, I could have very much kept on smoking and said, whatever. I just as soon smoke as deal with what you're suggesting. But I thought, you know what? This is a showstopper, and I quit and haven't smoked since then.
Good for you. So what do you suggest as far as, do you have a percentage of income that people should save in order to be, prepared for the future?
It just depends. I mean, everybody's circumstances are different, and everybody's priorities are different. Everybody's wants are different in terms of, you know, maybe you're saving for your children's education, and that's a AAA1 priority right now. So you have no money to set aside, in effect, for your own retirement. Your priority is your children's education. Someone else may have way more dollars that they can set aside. So it really, really depends. But if people have more wealth than they need, then that's when you really step into the whole opportunity that philanthropy and legacy planning provides. Because at the end of the day, there are taxable opportunities, income tax saving opportunities by making those large donations.
Janet, what questions do you have?
So we had our children from a young age go to the bank with money to save. So what would you suggest to somebody who's just starting out, other than just going to the bank? Because, you know, the return of savings accounts and CDs is not that great anymore. Would you suggest that they find somebody that deals with investments for retirement? Or, I mean, how does that look? Because I think, you know, our bank is a good source, I think, but then there becomes somebody else that's probably a little more savvy. What would you suggest?
Okay, I'm a CFP, Certified Financial Planner, and I know that is a designation that's global. I would suggest that that person Google CFP near me and check out who are these people, because a CFP has to create a whole plan, a total plan. Again, I'll share another example with you. I was volunteering a couple of weeks ago at our local fall fair, and the person that I was with told me that he had been a steward for a young person. The young person is now 18, so has been turned over to a wealth advisor. He was there for that initial conversation. The wealth advisor said to the 18-year-old, okay, I'm going to look after you. We're going to work together. But the two things that I want you to do is have a will and get an accountant. Like, in other words, if we're going to work together, you've got to have a will right now and you have to have an accountant. I'm not going to deal with all your taxes. I know about tax savings opportunities, but I'm not completing your tax return. I thought, well, isn't that so smart? Because, the 18-year-old would go, what? What do I need an estate plan for? What do
Right.
I need a will
Right.
for? And it's funny because our daughter, again, when she was 19, returning from university, before you're licensed for selling insurance, you have to place an insurance policy. So she came home and I said, we need to get an insurance policy. She's like, why do I need life insurance? So I told her and we got one and, away we go. But the other thing too, life insurance for a young person is so incredibly powerful because it costs next to nothing. And that's really when you are your healthiest. And we know that in a lot of educational programs, kids get continuing ed credits for being volunteers in the community. So they're getting the message about giving back. That initial insurance policy, when you're a very young person, normally we think about it replacing income. But keep that insurance policy all through your life. And that can be your philanthropic statement when you're 70 years old or 80 years old. Never let it go. Insurance is so incredibly powerful.
That's a good tip. So, Nancy, as we wind this podcast up, give us a story, somebody's life that you changed. An example. You gave us some examples of your own. Give us an example of somebody's life that you've changed.
Okay, two things. I'm in Toronto, standing in line for a production. Come From Away, actually. You probably have heard of it. And I look over in the crowd and I think, oh my goodness, that woman looks familiar. And I went, Jocelyn? She said, Nancy Griffin. I can't believe it's you. We talk about you all the time. I think, oh no, here we go. Anyway,
Yeah, right.
As a wealth advisor, I guess I had advised her to consider other investments. It isn't all about all the investments that I'm offering. And, it's kind of like, what else would you like to do with your wealth, which is the important conversation you need to have. Well, they got into income rental housing and did not just one property, but 3 and loved it. Of course, have made some money and that money comes back and goes into their portfolio. And so bonus. But another example was recently we had a friend staying with us a couple of months ago. She spends most of her time south. She's retired. And of course, we know what markets have been doing. They're up, down, all over the place. And now with the price of gold, it's like, oh my goodness, what's looming?
Yeah.
And so she said, Nancy, I have an appointment booked with my advisor. I know her advisor well and know her well. And she said, I would like you to listen in just to, I just want your second opinion. He won't know you're hearing. Well, away we go. And so he said, he knows she's concerned, knows that she doesn't want to be bothered about what the investments are. She just wants to have a level of confidence. He said, at any given point in time, I've got 3 years worth of monthly set aside on an ongoing basis. So the market can go all over the place. You've got 3 years when you're covered at any given point in time. Then he said, okay, I know you like to take lump sums now and again. This is what I'm doing with your open portfolio. Some of the investments have exceeded our benchmark, so we're selling those, taking some profits, and this is what I'm investing in. I'm kind of giving you a fast forward with the conversation. Anyway, she asked her questions. He responded. It was just a really, really gentle, positive conversation, probably for about 20 minutes max. And when it was over and she's satisfied and he feels he's covered everything, I then said, hi, Nancy's been listening. And I said, that was absolutely exceptional because she now has a huge level of confidence that she doesn't need to worry. To my point about a trusted advisor, he is a triple A1 trusted advisor. Lots of credentials, but knows her, has her back, and is working. He's doing his professional job to serve her exceptionally well. So again, it goes back to a trusted advisor. who really, really gets to know that person and really what turns their crank and how you, as their advisor, can add your unique value to enhance their lives.
So, Nancy, what do you have a passion for?
I have a passion for philanthropy. I think philanthropy is, emerging as a bigger, bigger, bigger topic the whole time. I actually just was invited to this event where philanthropy in business is becoming a bigger issue. So it isn't just philanthropy in individuals, it's philanthropic focusing with businesses, coming back to what is the purpose of your business to begin with. When I was at Procter & Gamble, if you asked that question, they would answer it. So it isn't just an individual. It's now corporations setting the stage for giving back.
And if anybody has any questions, Nancy, I'm streaming your website here. Tell us the best way to get a hold of you.
Send me an email because we're about to launch some new initiatives this fall. And if I get an email, you'll go into our database, and into our database, you'll be the first to hear about what's up. And it's Nancy@womenworthwellness.com. Nancy@womenworthwellness.com. We're going to be focused on women's age of integrity. And initially I was focused on age 65 plus, but this woman who I have tremendous respect for said, Nancy, it needs to be 50 plus. So that's one of the things that we're working on, that we're going to be developing and sharing.
That's awesome, Nancy. Well, thank you for helping us realize our goal today, which is to educate and empower individuals to take charge of their own health, and wealth is definitely part of that. So thank you so much for being on today, Nancy.
Perfect. You're welcome. Thank you. Have a great day.
And listeners and viewers, thank you for tuning in to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. Tune in Monday to our regularly scheduled podcast, 12:30 to 1:30 Pacific Standard Time. Thank you.